Early morning in Phnom Penh. A tuk-tuk rumbles past. A distant radio plays a morning drama. A cinema marquee sits half-hidden under vines. Picture this. Who lived inside those modern pavilions, and what did they hear at dusk? Today, we walk those streets through sound and memory.
Listen closely. That's where the richness lies. Welcome to Ancient Echoes. I'm Rachana Solve, and with me, as always, is Samnang Bradley. In this episode, we explore Phnom Penh's mid-20th century modernism, cinemas, apartment pavilions, municipal halls, the everyday buildings that carried whole social lives.
We'll be leaning on conversations we had with an architectural historian and a veteran Khmer architect who worked on restoration projects. I'll read short excerpts from those interviews, but most of the hour is our guide through the city's concrete memories. And yes, if you want pictures, head to my YouTube where we've stitched annotated walkthroughs to match what we describe here.
First, a quick skyline sketch. In the 1950s and 60s, Phnom Penh embraced a language of modernism that mixed international ideas with local needs. Simple lines, wide verandas, sun shading devices. Think of colonial proportions meeting tropical pragmatism. The pattern shows us a city trying to be modern and also comfortable for daily life.
Let's unpack that with a quick guide to spotting these buildings. Look for horizontal bands of concrete, thin columns, deep overhangs, patterned sunscreens called brise-soleil, and communal courtyards framed by shop fronts or boarding houses. Many cinemas wore decorative marquees and tiles that still catch the light in the late afternoon.
From a cultural standpoint, these are not just stylistic choices. Verandas and covered walkways were places where family life spilled out. Radio dramas played at dusk, neighbors shared news, children chased one another across tiled courts. The architecture shaped rhythms, weekend films, morning markets, midday siestas in shaded corridors. The deeper story is how form met habit.
We asked our historian why architects in Phnom Penh looked to modernism rather than only recreating older forms. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that modernism offered a vocabulary for a new nation, efficiency, optimism, a chance to design for climate. But they adapted it. Brise-soleil weren't imported as ornaments. They were responses to sun, heat, and the need for privacy in dense neighborhoods.
And the veteran architect we spoke with laughed, softly, fondly, remembering how craftsmen blended tile patterns from rural homes with the concrete language of the city. Let's unpack that. The result was architecture that felt Khmer, even as it looked modern. The evidence shows us those small details, tiles, carved balustrades, the way railings curve, that anchor a global style locally.
Now, everyday lives. Imagine a Saturday night in the 1960s. Families dressed in their best, queuing at a cinema for a Thai film or a Hollywood picture dubbed locally. The cinema lobby smelled of popcorn and jasmine. Upstairs, boarding house tenants shared a courtyard where someone tuned a transistor radio. Those buildings were social hubs, clinics, barbershops, small grocery stalls, all folded into a block.
That sense of community matters. Our guests described how a clinic on the corner could become a meeting point for elders, and how verandas hosted radio serials that families followed together. The tradition teaches us that architecture is not inert. It hosts stories. The cultural significance is in those interactions, not just the facades.
Architectural details, explained simply. Brise-soleil are sunbreakers, concrete screens with patterns that let light and air through while blocking the harsh midday sun. Verandas and deep eaves create shade and breezeways that cool naturally. Tiled courts collect rain and become places for laundry, for children to play, for festivals to spill out of interiors. Essentially, design for climate and design for community are the same conversation here.
Anthropologically speaking, The pattern shows us how materials mattered. Local tiles, timber details, and artisanship were layered onto concrete frameworks. So even when a building looks modern from the street, the making process was deeply local. That's foundational to understanding why so many residents feel ownership of these spaces.
But over time, many of these buildings fell into neglect. Economic shifts, changing tastes, and commercial pressures meant pavilions and cinemas were closed, repurposed, or left empty. That decline can feel like loss, yet it also opens possibilities for reinvention when communities are centered in preservation efforts.
Exactly. We were careful in our conversations to keep policy debates in the background and instead highlight humane conservation. Our architect guest described a restoration where local residents were consulted from day one, not only about design details, but about how a building would continue to serve daily needs: a corner clinic, affordable housing units, spaces for artisans. That's how buildings remain alive.
A quick practical note for listeners. Architecture is visual, and audio has limits. We used vivid descriptions here, but please visit the companion photos and short walkthroughs on my YouTube channel to match what you hear. Those visuals are labeled with spotting rules, close-up of brise-soleil patterns, courtyard arrangements, and the tiles we mentioned.
If you're planning a respectful visit, a few field guide rules. 1. Slow down. Walk, don't race. 2. Ask before photographing people. If a resident says no, respect that. 3. Look up and look down. Facades, yes, but also doorways, staircases, and courtyard floors where daily life happened. And 4. Support community initiatives. Buy from nearby stalls, visit local exhibitions, and follow projects that invest in residents.
On photography etiquette, use a polite approach. Smile, say who you are, mention ancient echoes or Samnang's YouTube if someone asks. Avoid framing buildings as empty backdrops for stylized images that erase living communities. The tradition teaches us that context is everything.
We want to flag an important risk. Talking about urban change can accidentally make communities feel like artifacts. We mitigated this by focusing interviews on community-led preservation and tangible benefits, livelihoods, affordable housing, and shared cultural programs, rather than top-down redevelopment plans. That keeps the conversation human-centered.
Before we close, a few spot recommendations for visitors and curious listeners. The old cinema on Street X for its original marquee tiles, a row of mid-century pavilions near the market for courtyard life, and a municipal hall with a restored brise-soleil pattern that's rare in the city. Check the show notes for exact locations and timestamps on the YouTube walkthrough.
That's the heart of it. These buildings hold family histories, radio dramas, makeshift clinics, and the daily choreography of city life. The cultural significance is alive if we listen and care. What this reveals is that preservation is not about freezing a snapshot. It's about keeping places useful and rooted in living communities.
Thank you for walking these streets with us in sound. If you enjoyed this exploration of Phnom Penh's modernist legacy, please share any photos or memories you have. Tag Ancient Echoes and Samnang's YouTube. We'll curate a reel of your images and pair them with annotated notes so everyone can see what we described.
Let's unpack that together on social media. Share respectfully and tell us the stories behind your photos. The pattern shows us how memory and architecture weave together, and we want to hear your corner of that tapestry.
And finally, join us next episode when we look at rural temple restoration and the artisans keeping ancient crafts alive. Until then, let's unlock the echoes of history together.